I'm a 28-year-old guy, and my fiance and I have been engaged for about 18 months. We've been together for years, and the plan has always been to get married next spring. We've already booked the venue, paid the deposit for the caterer, and locked in a photographer. All the big stuff is done, so I was starting to feel like we could just relax and enjoy the countdown to our wedding day. But then, all hell broke loose. To set the stage a little, my family is big and pretty close. We have a lot of traditions, and weddings are a huge deal. My cousin, who's 25, just got engaged recently. And while I'm happy for her, she's had a rough time trying to plan her wedding. The main issue? She's been struggling to book a venue for the date she wants. And that's where the drama starts. She's been pretty vocal about being envious of the venue we booked. Every time she brings it up, she calls it perfect and goes on about how her fiance's family can't afford something like that. I didn't think much of it. Lots of people talk about wedding envy when they're planning, right? But I didn't realize how deep her jealousy went until a family dinner a couple of weeks ago. We're all sitting there, having a pretty normal meal, when my aunt, her mom, starts making this weird speech about how amazing it would be if my cousin could use our venue. I'm sitting there, fork halfway to my mouth, thinking it's a joke, but she keeps going. She's talking about how my cousin is younger, and since her fiancé is in the military, there's a chance he might be deployed soon. According to my aunt, it just makes sense for her to get married first, and wouldn't it be so lovely if we moved our wedding date so my cousin could have the venue? At this point, I'm still processing, because what? My fiancé and I had this date booked for over a year. Everything's paid for. But my aunt is dead serious, and my cousin is sitting there nodding like it's a done deal. My fiancé? She's furious, and I can't blame her. The whole thing is completely ridiculous. She doesn't even say a word at the table, just gives me a look that says do not even entertain this idea. So I politely but firmly tell my aunt and cousin that there's no way we're changing our wedding plans. And of course my cousin bursts into tears. Full-on waterworks at the dinner table. She storms out, and my aunt goes after her, throwing us the most disappointed look I've ever seen. The rest of the dinner is just awkward silence, with my parents clearly uncomfortable but not saying much. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe my cousin would cool down, realize how insane the whole idea was, and we could all move on. But nope. The next day, my phone is blowing up. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, you name it. It's all from various family members, and the general message is that I need to think about family unity and be the bigger person. My aunt must have gotten to them first because everyone is acting like it's some small ask. Like all we'd have to do is snap our fingers and the wedding plans would magically change. Some of the messages are trying to guilt trip me into giving in. It's just one small sacrifice for the sake of family harmony, they say, as if moving an entire wedding is no big deal. My mom calls and starts talking about how weddings are supposed to bring families together, not divide them. She's going on and on about how disappointed my grandmother would be if the family couldn't get along for such an important event. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there staring at my phone, feeling like I'm living in some kind of weird alternate universe. My fiancé is, understandably, furious about all of this. She doesn't even want me to entertain these conversations, and I don't blame her. It's our wedding, and we've worked hard to make everything perfect for us. I'm feeling overwhelmed, so I do what any rational person does in the age of the internet. I turn to Reddit. I throw up a post explaining the situation, asking if I'm being unreasonable for refusing to change our wedding date. I'm half expecting people to say, yeah, family comes first, you should consider it, but the response is intense. The post blows up. People are furious on my behalf, telling me to stand my ground and not give in to this crazy request. Reddit's support is great, but it also makes me realize how ridiculous this whole situation is. My cousin even texts me an ultimatum. Either I give up the date, or she won't come to the wedding, and she'll make sure the rest of the family doesn't either. I didn't think things could get worse, but now it feels like my whole family is turning against me because I won't let my cousin hijack our wedding. At this point, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to stay calm and not let this ruin the excitement of our wedding, but the pressure is getting intense. My fiance and I are on the same page. We're not changing anything, but with the family piling on the guilt and my cousin basically threatening to blow everything up, it feels like this is just the beginning of a much bigger mess. Update 1. I woke up the next morning to a phone buzzing nonstop on my nightstand. Half asleep, I reached over, thinking maybe it was work or a random spam call. But no, it was family. Again, more texts, more missed calls. My grandmother was leading the charge this time, urging me to do the right thing and keep the family together. It was like they'd all gotten the same script overnight. Everyone was suddenly on board with this idea that I should just hand over our wedding date like it was no big deal. The guilt trip was real, and I could feel the pressure building. By mid-morning, I was trying to shake it off, but then my parents showed up at our place unannounced. They looked serious, and I knew this wasn't going to be a casual visit. My fiancé and I let them in, and right away they jumped into this whole spiel about family traditions. My dad was saying how, in our family, it's always been customary for the younger cousin to marry first if they're ready. My mom was trying to be more emotional about it, saying how torn up the family is, and how she's worried this whole situation is going to cause a permanent rift. It was heavy. My fiancé wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, calmly but firmly letting them know that we weren't going to move our wedding date. She explained again that everything was booked, paid for, and planned. Changing anything now would cost us thousands of dollars, not to mention the stress it would cause. My parents looked shocked, like they hadn't expected her to be so direct. Then, out of nowhere, my mom broke down crying. She kept saying she couldn't handle the idea of the family being divided over this, and she begged me to reconsider. It was brutal seeing her that upset, and for a moment I felt torn. But I also knew that this was an impossible situation. Changing our wedding plans just to make everyone happy wasn't fair to my fiancée or to me. Before I could say anything, my younger brother, he's 22, chimed in. He's usually quiet when it comes to family drama, but this time, he backed me up. He told my parents they were being unreasonable and that I should just do what makes me happy. He even offered to be my security at the wedding if things got out of hand with the family. My parents didn't really know how to respond to that, so they left, still upset, but maybe realizing they weren't going to change my mind. Later that day, things got even messier. My cousin had gone on Facebook and posted one of those super passive-aggressive statuses. Something about how some people can be so selfish and how she was disappointed in the people who were supposed to be there for her during this stressful time. I knew it was aimed at me, but the kicker was how many family members were liking and commenting on it. More drama, more fuel to the fire. Then my aunt called. This time she wasn't being polite. She flat out accused me of ruining her daughter's wedding dreams. She went on about how my cousin was now talking about eloping because she was so stressed out from all of this. It felt like every conversation with them was some new layer of guilt, but it wasn't going to work. My fiancé and I had already decided that we weren't changing anything. My aunt hung up on me, still furious. At that point, my fiancé suggested we go low contact with the family for a while. She was right. The constant calls, messages, and Facebook drama were taking a toll on both of us. So we made a plan to step back from the family until the wedding was over and focus on us instead. I reached out to our wedding planner to see if there was any possibility of my cousin sharing the venue on a different weekend, just to see if that could calm things down. But no luck. The planner told us that the venue was booked solid for months. It wasn't even an option. Feeling drained, my fiancé and I decided to take a break from everything and plan a weekend getaway. Just the two of us, no drama, no family, no wedding talk. It was what we needed to reset and get our heads back on straight. Meanwhile, my cousin's fiancé texted me, apologizing for all the drama. He seemed genuinely embarrassed and said he'd tried talking to her, but nothing was working. I appreciated the gesture, but it didn't change the fact that my cousin and aunt were still in full meltdown mode. As if things couldn't get worse, the family group chat exploded. Relatives were taking sides. Some were backing me up, saying this whole thing was ridiculous, while others were calling me selfish for not bending to family tradition. It was a full-blown family war, with people I hadn't heard from in months suddenly weighing in on the situation. It was all too much. I ended up booking a session with my therapist to help process all the guilt and pressure. Reddit was still blowing up with support from strangers, telling me to stick to my guns and cut off anyone toxic in my life. And they weren't wrong. I started to realize how much I'd been bending over backward to accommodate my family, and enough was enough. I wasn't going to let this drama overshadow our wedding. This was supposed to be about my fiancé and me, and it was time to start acting like it. Update 2. A few days after we decided to go low contact with my family, things took a dramatic turn. My cousin had what I can only describe as a full-on meltdown. I woke up to a massive text message from her, about 10 paragraphs long, saying I had ruined her life and that I was responsible for destroying her wedding plans. She went on about how she had been dreaming of this perfect wedding since she was a little girl, and now that dream was falling apart because I wouldn't give her our venue. She was throwing every guilt-tripping tactic she could think of at me, talking about how I was older and should be more mature, and how she needed the venue more than I did because her fiancé might be deployed soon. It was completely over the top, and honestly, pretty exhausting to read. But I didn't respond. I figured engaging with her would only make things worse. Apparently, that wasn't enough for my aunt. She escalated things by calling my parents and laying down an ultimatum. Either I give up the wedding date, or they won't speak to me again. My mom called me afterward, and I could hear the stress in her voice. She was trying to hold it together, but I knew she was struggling. She told me how heartbroken she was that the family was being torn apart over something like this and begged me to reconsider one last time. I told her that I wasn't changing my mind, and while she didn't say it, I could tell she finally understood that this wasn't going to go away. In the meantime, my fiancé and I had to start sending out our wedding invitations, but with all the family tension, it was hard to focus. It should have been a fun part of the process, but instead it felt like we were walking on eggshells. Every name we added to the guest list felt like another potential source of drama. As if on cue, the family group chat exploded again. This time, one of my uncles chimed in to defend my cousin, saying that family always comes first and I should just let her have the date. More relatives jumped into the fray, and it turned into another back and forth of accusations and passive-aggressive jabs. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But then, something unexpected happened. My older cousin, who's 31 and usually stays out of family drama, stepped in. She sent a message to the group chat saying the whole situation was ridiculous and pointed out that my cousin had a long history of attention-seeking behavior. She basically called out the entire family for enabling it, which honestly felt like a breath of fresh air. Finally, someone else was seeing this for what it really was. The group chat went quiet after that, and I was secretly hoping that would be the end of it. Of course it wasn't. A few days later, I got wind that my cousin had tried to book the same venue for the weekend before our wedding. She actually went behind our backs and tried to secure the venue, but thankfully it was already booked for another event, so her plan didn't work. The venue staff must have seen this coming because they contacted me to let me know what had happened. I wasn't surprised, but I was definitely annoyed. To make matters worse, her fiancé reached out to me again, apologizing profusely. He told me he had tried everything to get her to let it go, but she just wouldn't drop it. He was clearly embarrassed, and I actually felt bad for the guy. It seemed like he was caught in the middle of this whole mess too. And then, in a surprising turn of events, my parents finally came around. After hearing about the latest stunt my cousin pulled with the venue, they told me I was doing the right thing by sticking to my plans. It was a relief to have their support, but they still urged me to keep the peace with the rest of the family, which was easier said than done. At this point, my fiancé and I had had enough. We made the decision to go completely no contact with my cousin and her immediate family until after the wedding. It wasn't an easy choice, but it felt necessary. There was just too much stress and drama, and we needed to focus on making our wedding day what we wanted it to be. My fiancé's parents, who had been watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, expressed concern that the drama might overshadow our wedding, but they fully supported us in cutting ties. They assured us that, no matter what, they were there for us, and it felt good to have that kind of unwavering support. Meanwhile, Reddit continued to rally behind us. Every time I posted an update, more people shared their own stories of family drama, encouraging us to stay strong and cut off anyone who was toxic. The community support was honestly one of the few things keeping me sane through all of this. In therapy, I talked through the guilt and pressure I was feeling, and my therapist reminded me to set firm boundaries. She encouraged me to stay focused on my happiness and not let anyone else's expectations ruin this special time. Then came the final straw. During my fiancé's dress fitting, I got an emotional voicemail from my grandmother. She was begging me to make peace with my cousin, saying she didn't want to see the family divided. It was hard to hear, and I could tell it was affecting my fiancé as well. But despite everything, we were determined not to let this drama ruin our big day. With my fiancé's constant support, we decided to push forward with our plans. No matter what happened, we were going to make our wedding day about us and the love we shared, not about the family drama that had been trying to overshadow it. Update 3. A week after deciding to go no contact with my cousin and her immediate family, things somehow managed to get even worse. I got a call from the wedding venue manager early one morning, and right away, I knew something was wrong. The manager explained that someone had called pretending to be me, trying to cancel our venue booking. Luckily, they flagged the request as suspicious and didn't go through with it. But the fact that someone had actually tried to sabotage our wedding hit hard. It didn't take long to figure out who was behind it. The venue manager gave us the date and time of the call, and everything lined up perfectly. It had to be my cousin. There was no one else who would be this desperate or petty. I was shocked, but at the same time, not entirely surprised. She had already tried booking the venue for the weekend before our wedding. Clearly, this was her next move. When I told my fiancé what had happened, she was furious and immediately wanted to involve the police. She was right, it was impersonation, and trying to cancel someone's wedding venue crossed a line. But I hesitated. Filing a police report meant taking this drama to a whole new level, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the family fallout that would come with it. Still, I knew we needed to protect ourselves, so we decided to keep that option on the table. The most painful part of all this was the silence from my family. After the sabotage attempt, I expected someone, anyone, to step in and call out my cousin for what she did. But no one said a word. Not my aunt, not my other cousins, not even the relatives who'd been on my side before. It was like they were all pretending nothing had happened. This silence cut deeper than the actual sabotage. It felt like the family was choosing to turn a blind eye to her behavior. When I told my parents about the attempted cancellation, they were furious. My dad, usually the calm and rational one, immediately called my aunt to confront her. That led to a massive argument at a family gathering later that week. My parents were demanding answers, but my aunt, in typical fashion, tried to downplay the whole thing. She claimed my cousin was just emotional and hadn't meant any harm, saying that it was just a reaction to all the stress she was under. No apology, no accountability, just excuses. That, of course, set off another explosion in the family group chat. Relatives started picking sides again, with some still defending my cousin. They echoed my aunt's excuses, saying things like, she's just stressed, and it's just wedding drama. She didn't mean it. But others, thankfully, were disgusted by what she'd done. A few people messaged me privately, saying they couldn't believe she'd stooped so low. As for my cousin, she finally sent me a text. It wasn't much of an apology, though. She wrote that she was acting out of stress and hoped we could move past this. It was infuriating. After everything she'd done, the Facebook drama, trying to steal the venue, and now sabotaging our wedding plans, this half-hearted apology felt like a slap in the face. There was no mention of what she actually did or any real acknowledgement of the harm she caused. I decided I'd had enough. I posted an update on Reddit, explaining the sabotage attempt and how my cousin had pretended to be me to cancel the booking. The response was overwhelming. The post went viral again with thousands of comments pouring in. People were outraged, calling out my cousin's toxic behavior and encouraging me to go no contact for good. Many suggested I file a police report and take legal steps to protect myself. All of this was weighing heavily on my fiancée. She was becoming more and more frustrated with how the drama was overshadowing our wedding planning. It was supposed to be an exciting time for us, but instead it felt like we were constantly putting out fires. She was right. This was adding unnecessary stress to what should have been a happy period in our lives. Our wedding planner even stepped in with a warning. She advised us to be cautious moving forward, especially with family involvement. She recommended hiring additional security for the wedding day, just in case. That was the last thing we wanted to hear, but given everything that had happened, it seemed like a smart move. After talking it over with my fiancé and close friends, we made the decision to go completely no contact with my cousin and aunt until after the wedding. There was no way we could keep them in our lives without it continuing to cause more stress. It was a hard decision, but it felt like the only option left. Of course, my aunt wasn't done yet. She delivered one final ultimatum. If I didn't make peace with my cousin, she and my cousin would make sure a large portion of the family boycotted the wedding. I didn't even bother responding. At this point, it felt like their threats were empty and manipulative, and I wasn't going to let them bully me into giving in. In the end, we did file a police report. We wanted to have everything documented in case anything else happened. It wasn't about getting anyone arrested. It was about protecting ourselves and having legal protection moving forward. It felt like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders once we made that decision. Despite the ongoing drama, my fiancé and I pushed forward with our wedding plans. We hired extra security, finalized our guest list, and decided to focus on the people who were truly supportive. It wasn't going to be the picture-perfect family wedding we had originally envisioned, but we were determined not to let my cousin ruin our big day. This was our wedding, and we were going to make it special, no matter what. Update 4. The boycott wasn't just an empty threat. My cousin followed through, rallying a decent chunk of the family to refuse to attend the wedding. Several aunts, uncles, and cousins who I thought would come sent us messages or just went silent altogether. It felt strange seeing so many empty RSVPs rolling in, knowing they'd been swayed by her manipulative tactics. It wasn't just a simple "I can't make it." It was clear they were taking sides, and it stung more than I wanted to admit. My parents were struggling with it the most. They'd been fully supportive of our decision to hold firm on the wedding plans, but they were hurt seeing the family torn apart like this. They tried to convince a few relatives to reconsider, but most of them wouldn't budge. It was like they'd drawn a line in the sand, and nothing was going to change their minds. By the time the wedding rehearsal came around, the tension was thick in the air. The absence of those family members was noticeable, and it cast an awkward shadow over the evening. My fiancé's family, thankfully, was incredibly supportive. They'd been watching this entire circus from the sidelines, and while they were concerned about how all of this might affect the wedding day, they were there for us 100%. Their presence and calm energy helped offset the tension, but you could still feel the rift hanging over everything. Luckily, our close friends came through in a big way. Many of the roles family members were supposed to fill, like helping with setup and coordination, were quickly taken over by our friends. They rallied around us, stepping up to make sure everything would run smoothly. Honestly, without them, I don't know how we would have managed. They kept the mood light, which helped ease the pressure and allowed us to focus on the excitement of getting married. Meanwhile, my cousin had shifted gears and was posting nonstop on social media about her own wedding. It was like she was trying to distract everyone from our wedding by throwing all the attention onto hers. The timing was no accident. It felt like a calculated move to steal the spotlight. And then, things took another turn. A friend of mine who was still connected with some of my cousin's friends sent me screenshots of private messages between them. In these messages, my cousin openly admitted she wanted to ruin my wedding out of pure jealousy. She even laughed about how successful she'd been in getting people to boycott. The messages were brutal. They painted her in the worst possible light, and seeing her true intentions written out like that hit hard. Those screenshots didn't stay private for long. They started circulating around our family, and soon enough, a social media war broke out. Some relatives rushed to defend her, saying she was just young and emotional and had acted out of stress. But others, thankfully, were horrified. A few who had initially sided with her even reached out to apologize and offered to come to the wedding, though it was too little too late. I updated my Reddit post with the leaked messages, and as expected, the response was intense. Reddit exploded with outrage. People were disgusted with her behavior, and the support I received was overwhelming. Some users suggested going completely no contact with anyone who defended her, and as tempting as that was, I knew I needed to focus on the wedding. I wasn't going to let this mess consume any more of my energy. My therapist's advice was the same. She encouraged me to focus on the joy of the wedding and not let these toxic family members steal that from me. The no-contact decision felt more and more like the right move with each passing day. As we got closer to the wedding, my fiancé's family stepped in even more, offering both emotional and logistical support. They filled the gaps left by the boycotting relatives without missing a beat. It was a huge relief to have them there, making sure everything was in place, and that we felt surrounded by love, not drama. Given all the sabotage attempts, we decided to hire extra security for the wedding. It wasn't something we ever thought we'd need, but with everything that had happened, it was better to be safe than sorry. The last thing we wanted was for my cousin to pull some last-minute stunt and ruin our big day. When the wedding day finally arrived, there was a mix of excitement and nerves. We were both a little on edge, wondering if there would be any interference from my cousin or those boycotting family members. But as the ceremony began, all of those worries started to melt away. The people who truly cared about us were there, and that's what mattered. The absence of several family members was noticeable, but surprisingly, it didn't dampen the mood. Instead, we focused on the love and support from the people who showed up. We had a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and the family members who actually wanted to be there. As the day went on, all the drama seemed to fade into the background. The reception was full of laughter, dancing, and moments we'll cherish forever. In the days that followed, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The wedding was a success, and it had gone off without a hitch. But I also knew that my relationship with certain family members had been permanently damaged. There was no going back from what had happened, and I was okay with that. The people who truly mattered were there for us, and in the end, that's what counted. We'd made it through all the chaos, and now we could finally move forward with our lives, leaving the family drama behind us. Update 5. A few months after our wedding, my cousin's big day was approaching, and I started hearing whispers that things weren't going well on her end. Rumors were floating around about vendors canceling last minute, and apparently she was having some major financial issues. People in the family were talking, but no one wanted to say anything directly to her, probably because of how sensitive things had become. I kept my distance, not wanting to get involved, but it wasn't long before things came to a head. Just a week before her wedding, the bomb dropped. Her wedding venue canceled on her. There was some error with her booking, and the venue had double booked for her date. When I heard this, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of karmic justice. After everything she had tried to pull with our wedding, this felt like the universe giving her a taste of her own medicine. I wasn't gloating, but I can't say I was surprised. You can only throw so much negativity around before it comes back to bite you. Then, of course, the inevitable happened. My aunt reached out, completely panicked. She begged me to help save my cousin's wedding. She went on about how I was family, and surely I could pull some strings to find her another venue at the last minute. The sheer audacity of it left me speechless. After all the drama, the sabotage attempts, the family turning against me, they expected me to swoop in and fix everything? I wasn't having it. I politely but firmly told my aunt that I couldn't help, and frankly I didn't want to. After everything they'd put us through, I wasn't going to sacrifice my peace or well-being for them. My fiancé backed me up 100%, and we decided together that we were officially done with that kind of toxic behavior. No more bending over backward to make other people happy, especially not the ones who had tried to ruin our wedding. As expected, the backlash was immediate. My aunt and cousin once again rallied the family against me, accusing me of being cold-hearted and selfish for not stepping in to help. Some relatives started reaching out, trying to guilt me into changing my mind. But this time, I was stronger. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me. I stood firm and ignored the drama. When the cousin's wedding day finally arrived, it was a chaotic, scaled-down event. She'd managed to pull something together at the last minute, but it was far from the grand affair she had been bragging about for months. Most of the family who had boycotted my wedding showed up for hers, but the tension was palpable. I didn't go, of course, but from what I heard, the whole event felt strained, like no one really wanted to be there. It wasn't the fairy tale wedding she had envisioned, and honestly, it felt like she'd gotten exactly what she deserved. In the aftermath, I found myself reflecting on everything we'd gone through with my family. It was sad to realize that some relationships had been damaged beyond repair, but I didn't regret the choices we made. In standing up for myself and my fiancé, I'd learned so much about setting boundaries and not letting toxic people control my life. My fiancé reassured me that we'd made the right decisions, and our wedding day had been perfect because it was about us, not the drama. I posted one final update on Reddit, thanking everyone for their support throughout this insane ordeal. The community had been a lifeline for me during the toughest moments, and I wanted to let people know how we were moving forward. I shared how grateful I was for all the advice and encouragement, and how we were ready to close this chapter and focus on our future together. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds of comments cheering us on as we moved on from the family chaos. Months later, I received another apology from my cousin. This time, it felt more sincere than the first. She admitted that her actions had been driven by jealousy and stress, and she expressed regret for how things had played out. But even with that, I decided to keep my distance. Some wounds are too deep to heal quickly, and I knew that letting her back into my life would only invite more chaos. I was done with that. The family remains divided. Some relatives are still angry with me for not keeping the peace, while others have come around and now see my cousin for who she truly is. It's a strange feeling, knowing that some people in my family may never forgive me, but I've made peace with it. You can't please everyone, and I'm done trying. Through all of this, my bond with my close friends has only grown stronger. They stood by me during every meltdown, every ridiculous twist in this saga, and they showed me what true support looks like. I'm incredibly grateful for the people who chose to stand by us through thick and thin. Looking back, I have no regrets about how I handled the situation. I'm proud of the boundaries we set, and I feel like I've learned some valuable lessons about dealing with toxic family dynamics. It was a rough road, but it's made me stronger in the long run. Now, my fiancé and I are focusing on our future together. We're planning the next chapter of our lives, building something that's centered on love, respect, and most importantly, peace. The family drama may never fully go away, but we're ready to move forward without it weighing us down. As I close this chapter on Reddit, I want to thank the community again for helping me navigate one of the toughest times of my life. Without your support, I don't know if I'd have been able to stand up for myself the way I did, but now we're moving on, and it feels empowering. Here's to new beginnings, drama-free.